Hello, I'm the Irish guy, and welcome to the Prem Catch-Up. Okay, let's be honest. That's a naff name. It sounds like the same type of boring cardboard language you might hear in an episode of Wallace and Gromit. So go on, give me suggestions in the comment section below for a new name for this series, alright? Oh, and while you're at it, just hit that red subscribe button. Go on, scratch that itch. Oh, now I'm just getting flashbacks to my overweight grandmother begging me to sink my fingernails into her eczema armpit on the couch. But alright, okay, let's sink our teeth into the opening games of the weekend with, the Prem Catch-Up. Oh god, that name sounds about as boring as sin. Right, let's go. Bournemouth 2, Aston Villa 0. Aston Villa fans must be getting sick of this. Nearly every season, this club just exists to give a newly promoted team their first morale-boosting win of the season. I mean, last year, I remember Ismail Assar petrifying Matt Target to within an inch of his life, utterly terrorising a Vicarage Road in a 3-2 win for Watford. I mean, the previous year, Leeds United picked up just their third Premier League win since 2004 with a 3-0 win at Villa Park. And I still remember back in 2008, Villa were the first team to lose a Premier League match to horrible Stoke. I mean, they always start the season terribly. Honestly, Aston Villa are almost replicating Will Smith's wife because they always slip up when August comes around. I am Bournemouth. Who gave Bournemouth a chance in the Premier League? Everyone eyed up the lack of summer transfer business and scoffed as if they had a monocle in their eye whilst looking at poor people on the bus. Well, look at them now. Jefferson Lerma and Kiefer Moore score the only goals, but this season I would worry for Steven Gerrard. I mean, right now, this man has no excuses. Villa have chucked huge pots of cash around again. And what's he done? Yanked the captain's armband off Tyrone Mings' bicep and stuffed him to the bench. Now listen, that's fine. Okay, dumping your captain is not illegal, and especially not when their performances make them look like a drunk Teletubby. I mean, Eric Ten Hag, take note. But Gerrard has basically come out and told the world that Mings will play when he looks me in the eye and shows me that he can play. A bit patronising. I mean, bear in mind, Tyrone Mings is a man who opened up about how his confidence was rock bottom after Twitter almost crashed when Gareth Southgate dared to pick him versus Croatia at Euro 2020. I mean, honestly, if you looked at social media that day, I swear Southgate had just walked out on the Wembley turf and strangled a kid to death before urinating on a granny in a wheelchair. I mean, the outrage. So to be publicly outed by your own manager. I mean, this reminds me when Chelsea began the 15-16 season with Jose Mourinho screaming at Ruben Loftus-Cheek in pre-season. Seems innocuous enough, right? But sowed the seeds for a terrible winter. I don't know. If Mings is a popular player in the squad, then don't be surprised to see a similar Christmas mutiny. Ozzy, Gerrard, you need to tread carefully. I mean, thank the Lord you don't have Luke Shaw in your squad. I mean, if you dare to tell him that he's been sloppy in pre-season, it'll probably burst into tears on the bus. Newcastle 2, Nottingham Forest 0. I'm gonna say it. Newcastle United have the best Bruno in the Premier League, which, I mean, imagine saying that this time last year. What an alien concept. You know, it's been like going back to what? 2010 and telling Justin Timberlake, one of the biggest pop stars in the world, that pretty soon there'd be a far more successful Justin on MTV. I mean, Timberlake could have probably just laughed until milk poured out of his nose. Either that or just phoned the loony bin. But it's true, Bruno Guimaraes is the complete midfielder. And unlike Fernandes, he seems like a smiley, nice guy who constantly keeps his level head. I mean, Fernandes, oh Christ, he's a bit like Wayne Rooney. Or after a defeat, you wouldn't put it past him to just decapitate his grandmother on the bus. Ozzy, Rooney is a bit of a wild card. You never know what he's gonna do. I mean, come on. 3 days after his wife wins a stressful court case, and he celebrates not with wine and flowers, but instead just signing Christian Benteke on a free. Someone who's had the goal-scoring touch of a sausage sandwich since 2016. But listen, Newcastle were absolutely brilliant. And that is now 13 wins from the last 19 Premier League games. I mean, this is a club who couldn't win a Premier League match until Christmas last year. I mean, what? But listen, utterly world-class goals from both Fabian Schär and Callum Wilson. But the former, I'm gonna say it. Fabian Schär is one of the greatest signings of the Mike Ashley era. I mean, this man could realistically stockpile all his Newcastle goals and show that DVD to his grandkids in 20 years, and they'd assume he was the Swiss Alan Shearer. I mean, lad, 3 years ago, he scored a 30-yard screamer against Burnley, banging it in off the near post. A once-in-a-lifetime goal for a centre-half, right? No, he just did the exact same thing about Nottingham Forest. I guess lightning does strike twice. I mean, this guy was bought from Deportivo La Coruña for less than £4 million. In contrast to that, Ben White cost Arsenal 50 million quid. I mean, he moved to Newcastle for £3.6 million. The same summer that Fulham were paying 10 times that for Alfie Mawson. I mean, come on, sure. He's that elegant, comfortable Rolls-Royce centre-half who chips in with wonder goals. And I'm gonna say it, he's probably as good as Nathan Ake. I mean, how is the rest of the Premier League just slept on him? But yeah, great one for Newcastle, and Alan Saint-Maximin just casually walked into the crowd and gave away a Rolex. I'm sorry, this guy, he just wanted an autograph. now he's leaving with 20 grand on his wrist. But honestly, if he had a brave man walking back to Biker after the match with that on his wrist, I mean, I know it often snows in Newcastle, but he'd be lucky if he wasn't Jon Snowed on the metro ride home. You know, a bunch of muggers stabbing him in the stomach before whispering in his ear,
For the watch?
Any Game of Thrones nerds in here? Everton 0, Chelsea 1. This result is a blessing in disguise for Everton. Listen, this was a hard-fought battle and only decided by a Jorginho penalty who must have stared at the eyes of Jordan Pickford and honestly must have felt queasy in his groin. I mean, I know Italy won Euro 2020 in the end, but don't forget, Jorginho missed his penalty. I mean, that could have been his Bukayo Saka moment. But he scored here, minimum fuss. But a shout out to Raheem Sterling. Of all the grounds where he could have made his Chelsea debut, it just had to be Goodison Park. I mean, a former Liverpool player travelling to Everton. I mean, this is supposed to be his bedding in period in the Chelsea shirt. Slowly getting used to the fact that he doesn't have Kevin De Bruyne pinging passes at his head. So going to this cauldron of noise and abuse. Oh, well, Harry Maguire got married this summer, right? It's a bit like if he then went on his honeymoon back to Mykonos. Yeah, try and grab a pizza and a coffee in a nearby restaurant, and once again you'll have a Greek chief Wiggum threatening to stab you in the leg. But listen, I know Everton lost the match, and they lost Ben Godfrey to a 3-month injury. But I'm gonna say something cruel. That is a good thing for Frank Lampard. I'm sorry, but it's prompted you to replace Godfrey, who I've never really been convinced by, and who last season was, part of the rubble of a relegation fight. But you've only gone out there and replaced him with Connor Cody, the Wolves captain, someone who is comfortably wedged in the England squad. I'm sorry, but to be able to sign him on loan, Lampard, what an opportune moment. I mean, poor old Frank probably thought he'd have to gamble with the likes of Jamal Lascelles or Shane Duffy. So to land Cody, what a fantastic deal. Although this is the moment where Connor Cody's Liverpool dream has officially died in the bin. I mean, this is a guy who spent 9 years of his life at Anfield. I mean, he's mates with Jamie Carragher, and he was even asked about a return to Liverpool during their defensive nightmare over lockdown. If only Wolves had chosen to dump him to the bench in 2020, then it could have been him, not Ben Davies, getting that dream Liverpool gig. But instead, he now has to settle for the ugly sister. Ozzy, this is a man who probably grew up laughing at Everton. And now at 29, he's a toughie. Listen, it is a brilliant move to get first team football to secure himself a plane ticket to the World Cup. But I mean, this move has happened all so fast. And I guarantee that by January, he'll finally realize the repercussions of what he's done. And honestly, after he gets booed at Anfield, don't be surprised if his form plummets and he winds up crying into his cornflakes. Leicester 2, Brentford 2. Okay. Hands up, whose idea was it to sell Kasper Schmeichel to Nice and for less than £1 million? Try to have all you've pocketed in compensation. It's just prize money you'd win on the chase. You've let 2 goalies leave this summer and still not signed anyone. Brendan, get the checkbook out now. I mean, Kasper's career is mad. While he's been a Leicester employee, he came dangerously close to a £4 million switch to Hull City in 2013. I mean, can you imagine if he had done that at 26? Leaving Leicester in the Championship after playoff failure, just to grab a quick and easy return to the Premier League and a chance to play under Steve Bruce. I mean, a bit weird that, because Brucey will remember Schmeichel Jr. when he was watching Winnie the Pooh and pooing on the floor. So to see someone who could have been your godfather, basically your friend's dad, coach you on a daily basis, I don't know, just a bit weird that when Steve has probably seen you in the bath. But I moved to Hull then. That Leicester title dream would have been in the bin, and he would have just have had the legacy of being a yo-yo goalie for 10 years at Hull, just be known as Peter's pretty rubbish son. Schmeichel would have been a tiger, yes, but the goalkeeping version of Alex Bruce. And honestly, read the quotes from 2013. His dad, Peter, clearly wanted him to go. So the fact he stayed and become a Fox's Club legend, honestly, up there in the pantheon with Gary Lineker, then fair play. And so go and chase the cash in French football. I mean, you've left behind a stale Leicester dressing room to join an exciting dressing room featuring experience like Dante, Morgan Schneidlin, Aaron Ramsey, Mario Lamina, and then with exciting youth talents like Amin Ghouri, Calvin Stengs, Kasper Dolberg, one of Leon Thuram's children, and 19-year-old striker Deji Satona from Waterford, formerly of Man United and Mullingar. So brilliant move for Schmeichel, but Leicester, I mean, Danny Ward is not the answer. Someone needs to scream that into Brendan Rodgers' face. That man is nearly 30 years of age and only ever had 2 seasons as a number 1 for Aberdeen 6 years ago and Huddersfield 4 years ago. He is not up to it. How unprepared can you be? I mean, you've missed the boat on both Dean Henderson and Nick Pope, who were available. So just go out there and throw £15 million at Newcastle for Martin Dubravka. Or you can sell Wesley Fofana to Chelsea on the proviso that you're allowed to sign Kepa on loan. But ideally, just go out and get Dubravka, because right now, you're in crisis. I mean, even Ben Foster would be an upgrade on Danny Ward, and he wouldn't cost more than a bag of Skittles. And for someone like Rodgers, a David Brent caricature who has probably actually written letters to Amazon begging them to do a Leicester all or nothing. I mean, you could at least settle for Ben's YouTube channel. Fulham 2, Liverpool 2. Okay, everyone, give Fulham a round of applause. I mean, everyone assumed that this season, Marco Silva's men would show the backbone of a cauliflower. I mean, for the last 10 years, watching Fulham in the Premier League, a bit like watching a peacock try to swim. Everyone was anticipating Fulham being chewed up in a blender, spat out, and once again, the fans forced to celebrate another relegation party in March. I mean, good credits, throwing relegation parties. It's a bit like failing all your exams at school, and your parents still greet you with a cake and balloons. If that was my mum, she'd tell me to eat nothing but shampoo for tea. Fulham were pressing monsters on Saturday morning. I mean, they didn't give Liverpool a second on the ball. I'm sorry, but Marco Silva, over the last few years in the Premier League, did anyone really associate the words midfield organisation with him? I mean, considering he was an Everton flop coach, I'm guessing the away fans probably spent the first half hour tormenting him, probably accusing him of being about as tactically sound as blueberry pie. I mean, Liverpool fans were just telling him that he was a young Roy Hodgson. They don't rate Roy Hodgson. But lad, fair play. Alexander Mitrovic bullied your defence. I mean, you would assume that Virgil van Dijk would have pocketed him with ease, just picking up the Serbian bulldog with the scruff of the neck and almost neutering him with a fork. But no, a strong header at the back post, and he wins a penalty and slots it past Alisson. I mean, Scott Parker and Rafa Benitez, are you watching? I mean, this man can score goals in the Premier League, and it's just taken him about 7 years to settle. I mean, to be fair though, Liverpool did battle back and nearly won the game. Darwin Núñez, yes I know, spending the first 50 minutes on the bench. To him, that would have been about as much fun as getting a haircut off Sweeney Todd. But still, he comes out with a sumptuous backheel finish, sets up Salah for a second. Honestly, he's going to be an absolute monster this season. Crystal Palace 0, Arsenal 2. Arsenal are fantastic. I mean, let's forget the Amazon propaganda, where Mikel Arteta's genius consists of playing You'll Never Walk Alone through speakers at training and drawing a cartoon where actual human organs come complete with smiley faces. Honestly, if Brendan Rodgers had done that, I mean, can you imagine the reaction on Twitter? Lads, since when was Arteta secretly David Brent? Another revelation from the doc is when Arteta fully blown admitted on camera that when Arsenal lost 5-1 at Anfield in 2014, you know, that game which spawned 1,000 ads, he gave up. I mean, sorry, Arsenal began that morning top of the Premier League in February, and he has admitted that as a fully functional player, an experienced player, playing in the middle of the park for Arsenal Football Club, he downed tools in the second half at Anfield. I mean, that's an unforgivable act in the eyes of many. I mean, he was on £65,000 a week, and yet 8 years later, he's allowed to be the manager. I mean, what? Some Arsenal fans would sooner you admitted to impregnating a female monkey at the zoo. I mean, that is a form of football betrayal. But listen, that doesn't take away from the fact that Arsenal were electric at Sellers Park. And don't forget, this is a ground where they crumbled and lost 3-0 in April. But here, they turned up and looked like a mini Man City. Finally, this is what Arteta had been hired to do. Plucked off Guardiola's lap with the promise that he could bring some sort of city football to the club. And not only that, but he brought half of Man City's bench with him too. But honestly, they were incredible on Friday night. West Ham 0, Man City 2. Erling Haaland has arrived. I mean, remember when he smacked the crossbar in the Community Shield? And people assume that Man City just paid massive money for someone who looks and plays like Donkey off Shrek. But this man is as guaranteed a success as any other footballer who's never played in the Premier League before. And he's only got 2 goals in his debut. Now, I know Romelu Lukaku began life pretty well at Chelsea last season too. But I mean, unless Erling sits in an armchair and pines for Borussia Dortmund on TV, then I think he'll be alright. I mean, does anyone think he wants to go back to Germany to play up front with Anthony Modeste? Yes, that 34-year-old French lump who flopped at Blackburn Rovers a full 10 years ago. I mean, Haaland is going to be a goal-scoring City monster. Leeds 2, Wolves 1. Okay, I said Leeds would get relegated, but of course, instead, they battled back to beat Wolves 2-1 thanks to a late own goal from Ryan Out-Nordy. Okay, admittedly, I thought the new Leeds recruits were going to be unproven flops. But to be fair, the midfield axis of Mark Roca and Tyler Adams looks pretty solid. And I have to say, Brendan Aronson, oh, he looked like a brilliant number 7. Absolutely running that midfield. I'm sure there's some soccer fans from New Jersey who have watched the midfield performance and, yeah, felt like drooling on their feet. So admittedly, yes, Leeds, it's a good start for you. Oh, am I really gonna have to box Thogden and Thogdad? Tottenham 4, Southampton 1. Okay, I said Tottenham would finish 7th. I mean, they just thumped Southampton 4-1, with even the likes of Ryan Sessegnon and Eric Dyer getting on the score sheet. I'll admit, it's a good start. But be honest, Spurs fans, when James Ward-Prowse volleyed the Saints 1-0 in front, you must have felt the sick taste of vomit in your throat. But listen, nothing much to say here. A brilliant Tottenham win. You look very good. Well done. Oh, and by the way, lads, I already covered the Man United and Brighton game in the previous video. The one where I went off on a 10-minute tangent about Arnautovic and Rabiot. Go check that out if you want, Man United fans. But yeah, other than that, That was your Prem Catch-Up. Give me a better name than that. Anyway, let's go. What do you think? Alright, let me know, guys, what do you think in the comments, okay? Let me know, how did your team get on this weekend? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe. As always, I'll talk to you in a while.